Got it. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February 15th, 2023 meeting of the Auburn School Committee. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, start with introductions down here on my right, please.
Dan Poisson, Ward 5.
Brian Belknap, Ward 4.
Larissa Perez Armendariz, Ward 1.
Pam Hart, Ward 2.
Karen Matthew, Ward 3.
Connie Brown, Superintendent.
Pat Gaudier at large.
Pam Albert at large.
Julian Dumais, Student Representative.
Mark Conrad, Business Manager.
Sue Doris, Assistant Superintendent.
All right, thank you. Welcome all. Let's start with this evening with the approval of tonight's consent agenda, which includes the agenda, the minutes of the February 1st, 2023 meeting, as well as the administrative staff contract renewals for Val Ackley, Mackenzie Govin, Michelle, Shabbat, and Benjamin Milson. Michelle, did I get that right? Is that right, Shabbat? Yes. Is she here? Shabbat? Okay. Yes, wonderful. All right, do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Oh. You can?
On the minutes.
Oh, sorry.
Under the superintendent's report.
Oh, sorry. Actually, Pat, I need a motion first and then a second, and then we can do. So I have a motion, so moved. That's okay.
Second.
In a second. Thank you, Pam. All right. Questions, comments? Yes. Go, Pat.
Right. Under the superintendent's report, they're talking about pandemic escalation charges and PCB. Would it be possible to put a reference to that being connected to the ELHS building project?
Oh,
It's
sure.
out of
Sure, absolutely. We'll make that change on there. Dr. Brown, do you know where she's noting? Okay, wonderful. All right, with all that. So first, second conversation. All right, all those in favor of tonight's agenda? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so let the record note that. Oh, and I'm sorry, I also meant to say Jason Levesque has an excused absence this evening. So we had a first, a second, and in favor, and let the record show Dan Poisson abstained from this evening's consent agenda vote. All right, with all that, let's open it up to public participation. Do we have anyone from the public who would like to come address the school committee this evening? Nope, seeing none, we'll move on. Let's move on to presentations. All right, this evening we are thrilled to welcome two of our teachers who have both been nominated for the Androscoggin County Teacher of the Year. These nominations were put in by either families or fellow staff members. So with that being said, can I please welcome Bree Crocker from Sherwood Heights and Sarah Chaput from Walton Elementary, please. Going to first, congratulations to both of you, and I'm going to hand the microphone off just for you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your teaching career. So what school you teach at, what grade level you are, and what's next for you as far as now that you've been nominated, what happens next, okay?
So Bree Crocker, I know probably most of you here. This is my 11th year teaching in Auburn. I actually did my student teaching at Park Ave, so I've been in Auburn the entire time, all second grade. And Sarah was actually my student teacher last year. Katrina Meserve, I had two of her kids. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Chaput. I teach second grade at Walton Elementary. This is my first year teaching, and I did my student teaching last year with Bree in second grade at Sherwood Heights, and I was nominated by a parent.
Oh, congratulations to both of you. Okay, no school committee rep report this evening, I believe. And moving on to superintendent's report, Dr. Brown.
Thank you very much, Chairperson Matthew. I'd like to give an update on how our first remote instruction day went. And I'd like to invite several folks up to the table. So Diana, come on up. Lisa, come on up. And Michelle, come on up with your folks. We'll just give the school committee a snapshot. I thought it would be really helpful to hear it from the folks who did the work, what it was like. And so why don't we start with the high school? So Mrs. Whitman, how'd it go?
Continuously.
Have to hold it the whole time? Okay. I'm not on TV
Unless
though, right?
you want this chair, then you don't have to push a button.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's so nice. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Whitman. I teach math at the high school, and I'm also the math department chair, and I've had some of your kids in class. So anyway, the first remote day, I thought overall went well. My first period class, even a student who's not always in school on time was the first one to show up in my Google Meets, but they all showed up. My period 2 class, I was only missing 4. And then my last period class, we had already planned a review, and so it was more of, let's just check in. Jillian was in that class. Let's just check in with me, and if you really need to come in and ask questions, you could. And so I did lose power at one point and messaged them in the stream and said, okay, I'm not sure if I'll get power back. Just tell me that you've gotten my message. I'll count you as present. You already have your materials. You know what you need to do. And then I got power back, and some kids showed up. But anyway, I had some technical difficulties with the iPad. I had it all working with Google Meets the day before, but for some reason it didn't work. But we just adjusted. We adjusted, and we made it work. And my department, whenever they had a chance, they were texting our little group chat, oh my goodness, I had this many out of this many. And they were really shocked at how many kids showed up. It was the first day of a new semester. So if there was a semester course, the teacher didn't quite have the relationship with the student yet. So that might have affected attendance. But you know, I would much prefer to have a remote day in January or February and have some sort of continuity at that point in time than to have a makeup day in June, for a couple of reasons. At the high school, if we have a snow day on a Tuesday or a Thursday, I don't see those kids for almost a full week. And in math, that's not good. Also, for my AP classes, whatever day I get in June, that's not going to help them for the AP exam. That's too far out. And we're already behind in terms of AP exams compared to other places in the country because other schools start much earlier than we do. So any day lost for that class is completely lost. So I would much prefer to have some sort of learning going on in January or February as opposed to June. And also, if we miss a white day in January, it doesn't mean we get a white day in June. It's just whatever comes up at that point in time. So overall, for the math department, it went very well, and people were very, very thrilled.
Great, thank you. Diana, how about the middle school?
So I'm Diana Carson. I teach ELA at the middle school, 8th grade. We actually compiled a list of stories amongst the faculty to share our experiences. And I'll say overall, it was very, very positive. We had over 90% of the kids there. I know in my classes, out of about 64 kids, I had 6 of them email me, text me on their phones or email and say, my power is out, I can't be there. And we had told them that before, and they did it. They were very responsible and did that for us. Mr. Rowe, the tech lab teacher, said they all participated very well in his classes. When his cat jumped up in front of his screen, the kids all went, oh, and then of course their cats came out and their dogs. One teacher saw a snake. I met a student that I'd had years before because when the class was over, the camera turned and there's a high school student saying, hey, Mrs. Carson, and we got to catch up. So there were lots of nice little relationship moments for kids. One of the students who struggles normally to keep track of time used his Alexa at home to remind him to get to class on time. So kids were using different ways to get to class. One of the teachers said she loved the connection with the shy students. The students who don't raise their hands were using the chat. They were participating in other ways, and so she really got to see them shine. I know for my students, I did a grammar lesson like I would normally do in the classroom. I called on them, they had to respond, and then because I shared the doc with them I could watch them working. So I told them it's kind of I'm spying on them. But as they were working, I'm saying, so-and-so, look back at number 3. I think you need to do that one again. And everybody was getting feedback in real time a lot faster than if I had been in a classroom and had to walk from student to student. And there weren't those normal distractions of kids talking or having to go get a drink of water. You know, they had everything they needed right there. So our administrators, Ben Wilson and Michelle Schubert, they had a Google Meet going all day long. We all joined at some point, every faculty member. They problem solved with us, they encouraged us. It was a really nice way for us to check in with our administrators and make sure that everything was going well. We did have a few teachers lose power. We had a teacher who texted Google Classroom saying, I lost power, I'm gonna go start my generator. Here's the assignment. Started her generator, got the Google Meet going, then her generator died. But kept checking in with the kids, and because she could use her phone, she was able to make sure they knew what they were doing, and everybody was on task. So for those few people that lost power, it was a little bit tough, but overall it was a success.
Great, thank you. Michelle, how about East Auburn?
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here tonight. I am excited to share out that we had a fabulous experience on our first remote snow day at East Auburn Community School. I had the best seat in the house because my job was to just visit classroom after classroom after classroom, and what I observed were more than 90% of our students in attendance in one way or another, and very engaged in some really exciting opportunities with the curriculum and with different activities that teachers had prepared for them. It started with great communication from Dr. Doris and Dr. Brown with a overview of what everybody would be doing for that day in the district. So it set that guideline for clear communication, and we followed suit at East Auburn and created some really nice, very simple documents to share with staff and also to share with parents, very clear, very concise, just like the district did for us. With that, our commitment at East Auburn was that we were going to have a stress-free day, and the way to do that was even with our kindergarten students to do some pre-teaching, to give teachers a little bit of time to make sure that they had prepared really excellent lessons that were really engaging for kids, and it paid off tenfold. We also made sure we had a plan in place to celebrate and reflect and get feedback from the kids afterwards. And what that looked like was we had, like I said, 91% attendance for the day, which is fantastic. We had 98% success rate with them bringing their iPads back on the second day. And then on the third day, we had 100%, which was fantastic. And the kids felt really good about that we had celebrations around that as well. And then also we encouraged teachers to collect feedback from the kids. And I just want to, visit one important thought about elementary, and I know it played out in different ways at the high school and at AMS as well, is that we never know how this is going to look in the family's home. And so we had to make sure that we had ample opportunities for this to play out really, really well, no matter what the barriers were for these families. And Ms. Spellman is here to kind of share. Oh my God, it used to be Ms. Spellman. Mrs. Brooks now. Sorry, we've been teaching a long time together. Mrs. Brooks is here. She's going to share with you what that looked like in 5th grade at East Auburn.
Hello, my name is Molly Brooks, and I teach 5th grade at East Auburn with Michelle. And my 5th graders, my goal for them really was that on the day of their remote instruction day, they could wake up and know exactly what they were going to do and what to expect for the day. And so we did a lot of practice just for maybe 20 minutes or so, making sure they could get onto Google Classroom, that they could get onto Zoom with the code that I required them to have, and that we had set their audio and their video up so there were no barriers to using the technology. And within that day together, we did a lot of work around using the MyView and the illustrative math platforms online to screen share with students so that we could pick up right where we had left off the day before at school. And so that was powerful because it was just piggybacking on the learning that we had just done together. If students were able to get onto our Zoom meeting, they did all of those meetings with me in the morning, and then I had some time in the afternoon with them if they needed help or had questions or just wanted to show me their cats and say hi to their mom. And, some of them were bored, so they hung out with me. But I also had some things set up for students so that if they needed that extra support, they could get it. And we had a plan B for kids who couldn't get onto the internet, weren't at school the day before to get their iPad. Maybe their mom was working from home and they couldn't get on in the afternoon. So there was something physical, a packet of work for them to do that was connected to what we had done in the previous day at school, so that they were continuing that learning even if they couldn't get on to our Zoom meetings that day. So it was a great day overall, at least for my fifth graders. I had a student, one of our special ed students, who isn't always as engaged in the learning as we would hope, who stayed on with me for 3 hours in the afternoon, just for that relationship piece, just the two of us doing some math together. So it was really positive overall from my perspective.
That's awesome. Any questions from the school committee?
I have a question. As far as, I want to be clear that this wasn't just something that you, or help me understand in my mind, this wasn't something that you just sort of found out about or prepared for, you've been preparing for, knowing that we are going to be preparing for Moat Day. You've been given professional time, you've been given ample opportunity to make sure you were set up for a successful day. Awesome, because it sounds like you all had a successful day, and so I just wanted to make sure, or really be transparent about the fact that you've been given some time to make sure that this day was going to be successful. Wonderful. And the other question I have is, did you find this day, you're all professionals, you're all experienced educators, and for myself, who's lived through those last makeup days in June, would you say that this was a more productive use of their educational time than tacking on days in the teens and the 20s in June?
Absolutely.
Okay, and everyone's shaking their head and saying absolutely, great. Because for us, that's evidence when we think about next year, when we set the calendar up, is it the same, do we offer the same some traditional, and then offering remote as well? And Jillian shaking her head down there as well too. Yeah, yep, so we have student input on that as well. Thank you all. Those were questions I have. Does anyone else have any questions for them? Pam?
I have a question. Was everybody at the school, or were you doing this from home?
I will say that Mr. Bim at the middle school was in his classroom because he found that the lighting was better there. He had electricity, he had power, and he lives very close. But most of us were at home.
Which is what I would expect. Any other questions? All right, thank you all. Thank you all so much for coming this evening.
So continuing with the discussion, the calendar for 23-24 is being put together, and you'll have a first draft on March 1st, which is the next meeting for the school committee. And I just wanted to get a sense of whether the school committee would support the continued use of remote days and the sort of blend of traditional days as well as remote days, before I bring that calendar to you.
Would anyone like to chime in? I'm seeing heads nod. So right now we have 3 traditional snow days, followed by remote days, and I'm seeing heads nod.
So
That seems to be.
I do have one question about that, because I did get some feedback from parents that the power issue was a deterrent to getting through. It sounds like, from these educators that it wasn't really that much of a barrier, which is wonderful, but I'm wondering if every school had the same kind of response as these 3 schools had, or did we see some more discrepancies in some schools than we did in others?
We had an administrators meeting, and this topic was part of that, and the group, all of the schools, discussed what options were available to parents if they lost their power. And primarily at the elementary school, it was packets that went home. One of the key factors in the success of the remote day, quite honestly, was that we decided as a community back in October that we would be doing this. And so we anticipated that. In my Sunday night news, I sent out the schedule and what to do and how to plan. And that included everyone in the school department, right from the superintendent all the way down to the bus drivers. So everybody knew what they were expected to do that day. Our technology coaches sent out suggestions and ideas. We did give PD. So there were options in the event that we anticipated that somebody might lose power. Just as to go forward, I would gauge that the blend of traditional snow days and remote days seems to work pretty well. In addition to the group that sat here and shared with you their experiences, I did hear from quite a few teachers And the consensus was that they liked the blend. They liked having the advance notice. The day before, by 10 o'clock or so, I made the call because I have to in order to get lunches out to students. And speaking of lunches, Mr. Conrad, there's been a development with the DOE.
Oh, and feeding kids on remote days?
Yeah, one of the early challenges was we initially received guidance that you could not provide meals to students outside of the school setting. They wanted to be in a congregate setting. Subsequent to that, we were able to determine that we could offer those meals as long as we weren't asking for reimbursement.
Okay.
And knowing that the number of parents tends to be relatively small from past experience, we had about 60 parents who opted for having meals go home with their children. We decided we would just take care of the costs of that through the operating budget. Subsequent to that, just today, we've learned the State Department of Education has received a federal waiver so that any future remote days this year, we can seek reimbursement for any meals offered to students that they take home with them. But the waiver only extends through this year. So next year, we may be back into that piece where we have to provide the meals. But honestly, it's not a large cost, and it certainly seems to be worthwhile both to be able to feed our students if their parents would like meals to come home and to be able to offer the remote days.
Absolutely. So I too, Dr. Brown, am hearing consensus for keeping the 3 and then moving to remote days after that. School committee members, when you're thinking about the Auburn School Department calendar, before Dr. Brown, I just assume you have not yet met with superintendents and started with a rough draft.
Not yet.
Okay. Any feedback you would like to give to Dr. Brown as she starts to set the calendar with superintendents?
Are we still following the Lewiston calendar as well?
So by statute, we have to have no more than, I think it's 4 dissimilar days for any sending school that sends students to a technical center. And that's a statewide statute. And so that's why individual schools try hard to start on the same day, to end on the same day, to have the same professional development days anytime school is not in session. And that's to make sure that the kids who are in those programs have continuity in their programs. So that is a statute, and we work pretty closely with the sending schools to LRTC.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on calendar discussion? All right. Seeing none. Thank you, Dr. Brown, for that.
Thank you. Just one other thing. Speaking of calendars, it's just about to be budget season. I know y'all live for this the other 9 months of the year, 10 months of the year. But Mr. Conrad and I have really put in double time here to make sure that by the time we present the budget to you, which is 2 weeks from tonight, it is thoroughly vetted, it is comprehensive, and we have done a good job with information that we think you will find helpful in your deliberations down the road. Just an FYI, the budget calendar is included in your packet. It has been updated from the fall. If you take to about the middle of the page, March 1st is when we start, and we begin with a review of the budget books, how they're oriented. Article 1, which is essentially all of regular education. So as with prior years, all of the principals will be making their presentations that evening. And then you can go through the different dates. It's pretty much every Wednesday in March that we have a meeting. And then if you continue down, we've had 2 new dates added. April 15 is the school committee public hearing on the budget. May 1st is the council review, so that one is when you want to plan on attending. May 3rd is your approval of the school department's budget, and then May 15 is the council approval of the budget as well. Happy to answer any questions about that.
Can I ask one question? In our budget calendar link, it says, you said April 15th is the public hearing. It's listed as the 5th here.
April 15th or 5th?
Thank you. Need better glasses. It's the 5th.
Okay, is the 5th. Okay.
Any other questions for Dr. Brown? So basically, you're here every Wednesday in March, so mark them off, except maybe the very last Wednesday in March. Thought I was looking to see March 29th. Other than that, we are here. You are all experienced with budget now, so you know what the procedures will be. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Brown. All right, moving on.
You're welcome.
School committee chairperson, school committee, none this evening. City council update. I was asked by Mayor Levesque if I would just take a moment. This is what he would have reported out on this evening. As some of you may realize, on Monday, Mayor Levesque did a state of the city address to constituents, and he asked if I would read aloud the part that focused his speech on the school committee. And so I told him I would read this part tonight. So this is the part of his speech that he gave on Monday. It says, when we look at our current and future success, we must include the work of the Auburn School Committee and staff. We are just months away from opening an incredible new state-of-the-art high school, and the hours, focus, and determination shown by all involved is mind-boggling, to say the least. We have also worked together with our partners at Central Maine Community College to provide early college access for our high schoolers, allowing them to explore new careers in the trades and get a jump start on entering the local career market, making our students and our city stronger in the process. When you look at how our educational proficiency scores have defied the state and national trends and improved an average of 30% at the same time as the new school is being constructed and these new programming options are being rolled out, well, you simply have to say thank you. Under the leadership of Chair Karen Matthew and Superintendent Dr. Connie Brown, the Auburn School Committee has made many operational reforms, working with the city to create best-in-class service and economy of scale, valuing every tax dollar entrusted to them and making difficult decisions that have and will continue to prepare our youth for the careers that exist now, here now, and in the future. So he wanted that shared with all of you in case none of you had heard that on Monday night. That was his report this evening, so kudos to all of you as well. All right, committee reports are up. Any questions on any of the agendas or meeting minutes from any of the committee reports? All right, seeing none. Oh, sure.
We've had a fundraising committee meeting. The agenda's not on here, but
Okay.
or the minutes, but it is in the Google Docs.
Okay.
I just wanted to talk about how we were looking at fundraising for the field broadcasting system and the softball and baseball dugouts that we will be needing once the school is up and running. And those are things that we are looking to fundraise for, as well as I'm hoping that the legacy boards are going to be at all the different activities. So if you're at an activity, look out for our legacy boards on ways to donate.
Okay, perfect. Pam, I've just said to Dr. Brown, I think it's important, you are a regular committee that meets, and I want to make sure that your agendas and your minutes, while they are on a separate Google Doc, which is publicly accessed, I want to start adding it to the agenda as well. Okay, so we'll pop that on there. Yes, yes, if you would, please. Thank you. All right, moving on to old business. Let's get into some policies. Can I entertain a motion for a second reading and approval of policy AUB-DLB, tax sheltered annuities?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Pam. Questions, comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. Next is a second reading and approval of policy AUB-CHA, the development of administrative procedures. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Pat. Questions, comments on that one? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. Next is the second reading and approval of policy AUB-CHCAA, student handbooks. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Clarissa. Questions, comments on that one? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. Next is the second reading and approval of policy AUB-CHD, administration in the absence of policy. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Everyone waits for you now. You know, you're just going to go out there first. Let's let them do it. All right, second.
Second.
Thank you, Pam. Albert, on that one. Questions, comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. All right, moving on to new business. Can I entertain a motion to approve the contract for general appliances for the Edward Little High School construction project to Dave's Appliances at a bid price of $93,090 and for specialty appliances to Yankee Equipment at a bid price of $20,825. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Pam. Questions on that one? Seeing none. Oh, sorry, was that a question? Sure, Clarissa.
I was just wondering how close or far this was from the original anticipated, or if there was an original anticipated budget.
The architects had made a projection, I think it came in under their projection, for the general appliances. As far as the specialty equipment, that came in about $1,000 more than their projection.
So this one came under, but specialty equipments was just over, okay. All right. And the bid tabulation was in your packet too, to see why we went with them. All right, thanks for the question. Any other questions? All right, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes, thank you. Next is a motion to establish the date for a public meeting and straw poll for a revised concept approval for Edward Little High School as February 27th, 2023 at 6 o'clock in the gym at Edward Little High School. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Pat. Nice job backing off Brian. Can I have a second? Thank you, Clarissa. Questions, comments on that one? All right, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. And last is a motion to award a contract to Harriman Associates in the amount of $160,000 to develop a facilities master plan. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. I have a second.
Second.
Thank you. Is that Dan? All right. I'm like, wow, I think that was Dan. All right, thank you. Questions, comments on that one? I will quickly jump in. The finance committee interviewed both of, we had a few architects, people come interview before us, gave amazing presentations, and ultimately we decided to go with Harriman. And I would say some of the pieces that were decided to go along with Harriman were simply that Harriman has a full and deep understanding and some history of our buildings here in the Auburn School Department. They are obviously the architects leading the charge at the high school, and so it's sort of, in our mind, made sense to wrap up the entire package with them. Also, their bid was more in alignment with the price that we were looking for. So I'll add those comments to that. Any other questions or comments on that? All right, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. All right, upcoming meetings. The one we do need to add to this, Dr. Brown, is the building committee meeting that we are having on Tuesday evening. I believe building committee members have received an invitation to that, but we do want to make sure that is out there. Any requests for future agenda items?
Hey, Karen.
A request for information, yes.
Should there's one other March meeting that's missing from there, right? The third.
All of them should be listed, right? We went out as far as March 14th, so we'll double check to make sure that all meetings are listed up here. But
Because we usually do the full month, right?
And DEI is missing on here as well. Yep, so we have a couple meetings we need to add to the list, Dr. Brown. DEI. Okay. All right, any other bits? All right, so at this point, I'm going to entertain a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056C for the purpose of condition of property. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. I have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Dan. All right. Motion to enter into executive session. All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. We are now in executive session. Thank you all for joining us this evening. I'm 20 minutes later than I was last time, but I did my best. Have a good night, everybody.